Those who read this letter will be the most successful people today. I will be the one to provide you with knowledge, experience, and wealth. Most importantly, from this point forward, I will help you memorize the lessons of success in the shortest time possible. Share me with your friends so that together, we can become elite and build lasting wealth. It sounds simple, but it isn't easy. In the invisible, silent currents of the universe, there exists a profound certain way of moving, thinking, and being that acts as a master key to the treasury of existence. Yet most people spend their lives banging against locked doors with the blunt instrument of mere hard labor. Imagine a man who believes that poverty is a virtue, that resources are scarce, and that he must fight his neighbor for a larger slice of a finite pie. This man is the archetypal competitor, trapped in a world of friction and lack. Contrast him with the Creator, a person who realizes that there is a formless substance from which all things are made, a thinking stuff which, in its original state, permeates, penetrates, and fills the interspaces of the universe. This is the sensational premise of Wallace D. Wattles, that a thought in this substance produces the thing that is imaged by the thought. You are not a victim of your environment, you are an architect of the material world through the laboratory of your mind. The narrative arc of the science of getting rich is a cold, clinical dismantling of the poverty consciousness. We are overlooking the most important thing, to think truth in the face of appearances, to look upon the appearance of disease and think health, or to look upon the appearance of poverty and think abundance, requires more power than any other work a human being has to perform. This is the archetype of the sovereign thinker. Most people are reflectors, they simply think what the world tells them to think. If the news says there is recession, they think lack. If the doctor says they are ill, they think sickness. But the certain way demands that you impose your will upon your own thoughts. The psychological lesson here is the law of mental imprinting. Your mind is the bridge between the formless and the formed. When you hold a clear, unwavering picture of your desire, you are communicating with the very fabric of reality. Analyze the visceral shift from competition to creation. The sensational reality is that you do not have to drive sharp bargains. You do not have to cheat. And you do not have to take from anyone to get what is yours. The competitive mind is a mind of fear, fear that there isn't enough to go around. But the creative mind knows that the formless substance is at its disposal and can produce an infinite supply of whatever is needed. This is the archetype of the abundant provider. When you operate from the creative plane, you are not seeking to take a thing away from another man, you are seeking to create something that did not exist before. The psychological depth of this shift is the elimination of envy. You can rejoice in the success of others because their success does not diminish your supply. This is the sensational birth of universal harmony. By aligning yourself with the creative power of the universe, you become a conduit for the increase of life for everyone you touch. The story intensifies as Wattles introduces the law of gratitude. Most fail because they lack the connection of appreciation. The archetypal ungrateful seeker reaches for the future while complaining about the present, thereby severing their link to the formless substance. Gratitude is not a mere politeness, it is a vibratory alignment. The more gratefully we fix our minds on the Supreme when good things come to us, the more good things we will receive, and the more rapidly they will come. The reason for this is simply that the mental attitude of gratitude draws the mind into closer touch with the source from which the blessings come. The analysis of this stage reveals the power of proximity. If you are ungrateful, you are mentally distant from abundance, and therefore, it cannot find you. The sensational act of giving thanks for what you have, and even for what you intend to have, is the psychological anchor that keeps you in the certain way. The flow moves into the workshop of the mental image. You must form a clear and definite mental picture of what you want. You cannot transmit an idea unless you have it yourself. The archetypal vague dreamer asks for more money or a better life. But the universe cannot answer a blurry request. The sensation of definiteness is the key. You must see the house you want to live in, the business you want to own, the life you want to lead, in the most minute detail. But Wattles adds a sensational warning: you must not try to use your willpower on things outside of yourself. This is the archetype of the manipulator, the one who tries to force the world to bend to their desire. The science teaches that you must only use your will to keep your own mind on the right track. You don't need to coerce God or the universe, you only need to stay in the state of faith and purpose. The narrative intensity builds as we realize that the only person you have to control is the one staring back at you in the mirror. The final stage of this first segment is the archetype of the efficient actor. Wattles argues that by thought, the thing you want is brought to you; by action, you receive it. Many mental scientists fail because they forget to act in the present. They wait for the perfect time or the perfect opportunity. But the sensation of immediate action is the only thing that bridges the gap between the mental and the physical. You must do all that can be done today. And you must do each act in an efficient manner. A successful life is nothing more than a series of successful days. And a successful day is a series of successful acts. The analysis here is a call to excellence in the mundane. Whether you are sweeping a floor or closing $1 million deal, if you do it in the certain way with the intent of increase, you are moving toward your goal. The story of wealth is not a story of doing certain things, but of doing things in a certain way. This requires a radical commitment to the now. You cannot act in the past, and you cannot act in the future. You can only act in the present moment, which is the only moment where the formless substance is responsive to your touch. The sensational realization is that every small, efficient act performed with the mental image of success becomes a brick in the temple of your new reality. The seeker must learn to inhabit their current role with such surplus energy that they eventually overflow into a larger role. This is the biological law of growth applied to the financial realm. If you are a clerk, don't just be a good clerk, be a clerk who thinks and acts like a millionaire. This surplus of spirit creates a sensational vacuum of advancement that pulls you upward into your destiny. This narrative journey is one of internal sovereignty, where the seeker stops begging the universe for favors and starts commanding the substance of reality through the twin engines of vivid thought and efficient action. The tension rises as we move toward the understanding that wealth is not a finite resource to be hoarded, but infinite manifestation to be called forth. Every human being has a duty to be rich, for it is only through wealth that we can manifest our full potential and serve the increase of life. To remain in poverty is to commit a sin against the formless substance that seeks to express itself through you. The first 10,000 characters of this script have laid the foundation of the thinking substance. We have moved from the competitor who fights for scraps to the creator who calls forth abundance. We have learned that the mind is a radio station broadcasting the image of our desire, and that the world is the screen upon which that image is projected. But the projection only becomes a physical reality when it is met with action in the now. The path is set, the science is established, and the seeker is now ready to descend into the deeper mechanics of the impression of increase and the advancing personality. The story of getting rich is not a story of money, it is the story of the human soul expanding to meet its true stature in a universe that knows no limits. The air becomes thick with the sensation of possibility, as if the very atoms of the room are vibrating in response to the certain way. The seeker realizes that they are no longer a separate, struggling ego, but a conscious part of a living, thinking universe that wants them to have everything they can imagine. This is the birth of the advancing man, a being who moves through the world with the quiet, sensational power of a law of nature. The journey continues, intensifying the dramatic realization that the only thing standing between the human and the gold is the quality of their own perspective. The formless substance is waiting. The image is held. The action is beginning. The gold is already moving toward the seeker, attracted by the irresistible gravity of a mind that has finally learned how to think in the certain way. The analysis of this stage reveals that efficiency is not just about speed, it is about the quality of spirit behind the act. Every interaction, every word, and every gesture must be saturated with the sensation of success. You are not just working, you are manifesting. This is the alchemical secret that transforms a mundane life into a sensational masterpiece of prosperity. The seeker is no longer a student, they are an initiate in the science of getting rich, ready for the final integration of mind and matter that leads to the ultimate harvest of the soul. The narrative intensifies as the seeker enters the realm of the advancing personality, a sensational state of being where every gesture, word, and silence becomes a magnetic force pulling the desired reality into the physical plane. We are transitioning from the laboratory of thought into the Colosseum of interaction. Wattles reveals that the certain way is not merely a private meditation, it is a social and biological contagion. The archetypal advancing man or advancing woman is one who leaves every person they encounter with the impression of increase. This is the sensation of universal expansion. In the cold, mechanical world of business, most people operate from a deficit mindset, trying to get the better of a deal or fearing that they are being cheated. But the seeker who has mastered the science operates with a surplus of spirit. They give to every person more in use value than they take from them in cash value. This is the sensational law of surplus. If you sell a book to a man, the paper and ink may be worth $1, but the ideas within must provide him with $1,000 worth of advancement. Analyze the psychological depth of the impression of increase. It is a fundamental law of the universe that life seeks more life, the plant grows, the cell divides, and the mind expands. When you project the sensation that you are a center of increase, you are aligning yourself with the primordial drive of all existence. People are naturally attracted to those who can give them more life. This is the archetype of the magnet. You do not need to boast. You do not need to preach. And you do not need to show off your wealth. You simply need to hold the faith and purpose so firmly that it permeates your very presence. The lesson learned is the sovereignty of the aura. Your internal conviction that you are becoming rich, and that you are helping everyone else get rich in the process, creates a sensational field of influence that makes people want to do business with you, work for you, and open doors for you. The science teaches that wealth is not a lonely peak, but a rising tide that lifts every boat in your harbor. The story moves into the labyrinth of the current environment. Many seekers fall into the trap of the postponed life, believing that they cannot begin to act in the certain way until they are in a better job, a better city, or a better situation. But the sensational reality is that you must overflow your current place to reach the next one. This is the archetype of the stifled seed. A seed does not wait for a better forest to grow, it uses the soil it is in to burst its shell. If you are a physician and you want to be a great surgeon, you must be a great physician right now, in your current office, with your current patients, acting in the certain way. You must fill your current place with so much purpose and efficiency that the place becomes too small for you. The analysis of this stage reveals the biological law of promotion. The universe cannot move you to a larger house if you are not successfully inhabiting your current apartment. Success is a cumulative force. It is the sensational result of performing today's tasks with the power of tomorrow's vision. The flow now carries us into the battle against the competitive habit. This is the most difficult threshold for the human ego to cross. The sensational pressure of the world tells us that there is a limited amount of gold, a limited number of high-paying jobs, and a limited amount of success. This is the archetype of the scarcity ghost. When you slip into the competitive mind, your power to create is instantly frozen. You stop being a master of substance and start being a slave of circumstance. Wattles demands a surgical removal of this thought pattern. You must realize that the formless substance is at your command and it can create a new gold mine, a new industry, or a new opportunity out of nothing. The psychological lesson is abundance security. You do not need to beat anyone, you only need to out-create your own previous limitations. The story of getting rich is the story of a man or woman who refuses to see a no from the world as a final verdict. Knowing that the certain way will always find a path to the yes, the narrative intensity builds as we enter the sanctuary of efficient action. Wattles warns against the dread of overwork. It is not the quantity of things you do, but the quality of the spirit you put into each act. 1,000 inefficient acts will not bring you success, they will only bring you exhaustion. This is the archetype of the frantic failure. But one efficient act performed with the power of the mental image and the law of gratitude is a success in itself. The sensation of poise in action is the hallmark of the seeker. You move through your day with a quiet, sensational speed, not because you are hurried, but because you are aligned. Each task is a sacred transaction with the formless substance. The analysis here focuses on the accumulation of victories. If every act of your day is a success, your whole life must be a success. The science is the art of making the present moment successful by saturating it with the impression of increase. This leads to the sensational concept of the advancing man in the workplace. If you are an employee, do not act as if you are waiting for a raise to work harder. Act as if you are already the person you want to become. Hold the mental image of yourself as a great success, and perform every task with the certainty that you are moving toward that image. This creates a sensational psychological vacuum. Your employer will see that you are too big for your position. And if they do not promote you, another opportunity will manifest. This is the archetype of the irresistible force. You are not seeking a favor from your boss, you are asserting a law of nature. The lesson is internal validation. You do not wait for the world to tell you that you are successful, you tell the world through the certain way of your actions. The gold is not the reward for your success, it is the physical evidence of the successful person you have already become. The script now descends into the mystery of the formless response. Wattles posits that when you act in the certain way, the very intelligence of the universe begins to move in your favor. This is the sensation of the universal synchronicity. People you have never met will be moved to help you, events you could not have planned will conspire to benefit you. The archetype of the providential path reveals that the formless substance wants you to have everything you want, because your success allows the increase of life to flourish. The psychological depth of this realization is the elimination of struggle. You are no longer fighting the world, you are being carried by the world. The narrative intensity builds as the seeker realizes that their will and the will of the Creator have become one. Their want to be rich is to want the universe to express itself through you more fully. This is a sensational, holy ambition. The flow moves toward the threshold of the final harvest. We are overlookers of the fact that the environment you seek will come to you through the environment you have. The archetypal dissatisfied soul hates their current job and their current house, thereby broadcasting a vibration of lack that keeps them trapped. But the seeker in the certain way loves their current environment as the womb of their future. They bless their current tools, their current customers, and even their current obstacles as the scaffolding of their temple. The analysis here is the sanctity of the present. You cannot build a golden future on a foundation of resentful present. The sensational power of the science of getting rich is that it turns the commonplace into the miraculous. By doing the common things in the certain way, you are performing a sensational act of divine manifestation. The seeker is now ready for the final integration of the faith, purpose, and action that leads to the ultimate manifestation of the form. The momentum carries us into the laboratory of the human will. Wattles is sensational in his insistence that you must never, ever use your will to control others. This is the archetype of the black magician. You do not need to use mental science to force a customer to buy or an employer to hire. This is competitive and compulsive. Instead, you use your will to keep your own mind on the image of what you want. The psychological lesson is the duty of self-governance. Your will is the rudder of your ship. It is not meant to control the ocean, it is meant to keep the ship pointed toward the harbor. The narrative intensity reaches its peak as the seeker realizes that their only job is to remain fixed in purpose. If they do not waver, the laws of the universe will do the rest. The gold is already in the formless state moving toward them. The action in the now is simply the act of reaching out to receive it. The final movement of this alchemical manual enters the sanctuary of the advancing life, where the mechanical accumulation of money is revealed to be merely the byproduct of a sensational expansion of the human soul. We are overlooking the most important thing. Wealth is not a trophy for the few, but a biological and spiritual necessity for the many. Wattles' narrative reaches its peak with the archetype of the magnified human, a being who has transcended the competitive plane and now lives entirely on the creative plane. In this state, the seeker realizes that their burning desire for riches is actually the formless substance seeking to express itself through them. The sensational reality of the science is that the universe wants you to be rich so that it can have a better instrument for its own manifestation. This is the divine partnership. The seeker is no longer a separate, struggling ego, but a conscious channel for the increase of life, a force that moves through the world with the same irresistible momentum as the tides and the stars. Lies the ultimate meaning that the book intends to convey. The science of getting rich is a manifesto for existential sovereignty through the law of abundance. Wattles' core message is that poverty is not a trial from God. but a mistake of the mind. The book serves as a psychological blueprint for the bridge between the invisible and the visible, teaching that the thinking substance responds to the quality of our faith and the efficiency of our action. It posits that to be rich is a holy ambition because only through wealth can a human being attain their full physical, mental, and spiritual stature. The lesson is one of internal responsibility. You do not wait for the economy to change, you change the economy by changing your vibration. You move from being a subject of circumstance to being a creator of form. Realizing that the certain way is the only path to a life that is truly advancing, the climax of this journey leads to a state of absolute certainty. The seeker moves from the anxiety of lack to the peace of possession. Even before the gold is in their hand, they possess it in their mind with such sensational intensity that its physical manifestation becomes a foregone conclusion. This is the sensational return to power. When you act in the certain way, you are no longer a hired hand of the world, you are an architect of reality. The final revelation is that the science is not about getting, it is about becoming. You become the kind of person who can command the elements of life because you have first commanded the elements of your own thought. The journey ends not with a bank balance, but with a vibratory alignment that makes you immune to the appearance of poverty. You are the master of your own sanctuary, and the gold of that sanctuary is the creative will you have forged in the fires of faith and purpose. Success is the result of doing things in a certain way, and that way is governed by laws as immutable as the stars.